Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the wonderful audio effect in Ableton that's called the auto filter. But before we can do that, we need to talk just a little bit about what frequency means. So as you're probably already aware, sound is simply vibrations. Things that make sound make the air vibrate. The air vibrates and those vibrations in turn reach your ears and your brain interprets that as sound. What happens is things vibrate backwards and forwards. It's not just one vibration, but it's things vibrating backwards and forwards over time. And fast vibrations, or things that vibrate at a high frequency, make high sounds. And slow vibrations, or things that vibrate at a low frequency, make low sounds. On Ableton here, we have a device called EQ8, which lets us see a graph of these sounds. So if I play here on my keyboard a low sound, this is just a low sine wave. That's very low. Let me go an octave higher. There you can see that that note is essentially right here. I'm playing a C, and you can see on my keyboard, and you can see with my mouse when I hold the mouse there, it's telling me here what note it is. So you can see that's a C1, and if I go up an octave to C2, you can see it's telling me there it's 132 Hertz. It's a C2, and if I go up a bunch of octaves, you can see that the notes get higher. When you hear more complex sounds, such as Harry Styles' Watermelon Sugar, you can see that instead of just seeing one peak, you see a whole lot of different stuff going on in the sounds there. So here's Harry Styles. So here's the low sounds that react. This graph reacts here when you hear things like the bass guitar and the kick drum. All the music, the instruments, the guitars, everything else is around here. And the higher sounds, like the hi-hats and things, are up here. Let's illustrate that. Here's my filter. This is a low-pass filter, which is going to cut out the high sounds. It filters out the high sounds and it basically lets through whatever's under this curve here. So as I bring this filter down by using the frequency knob here or just moving the ball, you'll see here and here the sound will change. So you can see I'm decreasing it, and it's got that sound in the movies of like when there's music playing in the room next door, or when the people are standing outside the club, and that's the result of cutting off the high frequencies. And you can select down here, this is a low pass filter, this is a high pass filter, which means it passes through just the high components of the sound. So here's the opposite of that. This is the whole thing. And now this time when I move this up, I'm going to cut out the lower frequencies. And now you can just hear the high frequencies in the song. So once again, a high pass filter cuts out the low frequencies, and a low pass filter cuts out the high frequencies. In addition to that, what you can do, which is kind of cool, is use this resonance knob here to create a peak. Now you can't see it so well there, but if I bring the frequency down a little, you can see that where the cutoff frequency is of the filter, the higher the resonance is, the higher the resonant peak that I create. And that creates quite a cool effect. Here's the low pass filter. I'm going to sweep it down. This is just ordinary without a peak. But what we've really heard is a lot of DJs and producers like to use this when you're getting up to an exciting part of the song. So they'll put a peak on it, and then when you sweep it down, it sounds more like, well, for want of a better reference, a DJ set. And as I was saying in class, to put it simply, adding the resonant peak adds that sound. Have a listen to that again. This is with the peak. And this is with no peak. Less exciting. DJs love putting that peak on to make a sweep more dramatic. And this is what it would sound like with a high pass filter. So again, here's with no resonant peak, and then with a resonant peak. It adds that extra kind of whooshiness to it. So where we're going to be using this is on our drone. So I'm just going to put a stop here to Harry Styles, go over to our drone, and hit play on it. There it is. So I've got an EQ8 here, so I can see the frequency graph of our drone, and you can see there's something moving in there already, which is just part of the sound, the combination of sounds that I've got in there. And once again, if I have a little peak on here and I sweep this down, you can see it and hear it. If I want it to be more dramatic, I can add a higher peak. A bit more. There it is. I love the sound that makes when it emphasizes the frequency that's being cut off. When I'm dealing with the drone, I'm not going to use the high pass filter because even though it might make a cool sound, when I'm doing sweeps on my drone, I don't want to lose that low part of the sound, unless maybe at the very end of the track I might try that. But here, I'm going to keep the low part of the frequency, and if I just sweep the top, I can make a cool effect there. It looks cool, but more importantly, of course, it sounds cool. So one other thing I can do here is I can add delay. If I add delay to the drone, it sounds pretty cool anyway. But the subtle changes that I make using the frequency knob are going to get repeated. So just to be clear, what's going on here, knob B is sending any audio from this channel to whatever's in B. And over here I have B, I have a delay set to 3/16 notes. It's 100% wet over here, and I've got feedback of 54%. So what's going on, just to so you can hear it, if I start and stop the drone quickly, that's just starting and stopping quickly. Now if I put the delay on, using the B send, so that's the delay here. So you're going to hear the sweeps be delayed by that same amount. And if you can't hear what I'm talking about, I'll do a quick sweep up and you'll hear it. Hear that? So if you do those slow, it adds just a whole lot of character to it. I think sweeping that sounds really cool, but it's kind of annoying to have to do it with the mouse here. So one thing I can do is I can set up MIDI mapping using my keyboard. If you have a keyboard with knobs, or even just a keyboard that has the mod wheel on it, what you can do, if first of all you go Command comma to go into preferences and go into MIDI here, and you want to make sure that you've set up the right control surface for what you've got. So first of all, here you can select whichever one you've got plugged in. In my case, I've got an Oxygen 25 plugged into my computer. Here for the control surface, if it's the new Oxygens, you select Oxygen 4th Gen. If you've got one of these older M-Audio grey keyboards, you can select here a Radium 49 or a Radium 61. That's essentially what that is. And then here you've got to make sure that remote, for input, that remote is clicked to on, otherwise what I'm about to show you won't work. So here's what you want to do. What I'm going to do is I want to set one of the knobs on this keyboard. This keyboard has 8 knobs on it, and I want to set one of them to control frequency and one of them to control resonance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this one, edit MIDI map, and you can see Command M will do it as well. So if I Command M or edit MIDI map, now I click on the one that I want to edit, and then it's just waiting to hear, okay, by clicking on it, I'm saying I want to control this knob, and the computer is just waiting to see which knob I want to use to control it with. So I'm going to twiddle the knob called C4 on my keyboard, and when I do that, you can see it shows up something here, and then I'm going to click on this one, the resonance, and I'm going to click twiddle the knob underneath it. And so now when I get out of MIDI mode, either by pushing this MIDI here or Command M on my computer's keyboard, now when I turn my knob, the first knob I suggested, I'm now turning that and moving the frequency controller, and likewise I can turn the resonance. So now I can actually get 2 hands on my knobs and control these. So I can control the peak with this one and sweep that one up and down, make the knob the peak less, and sweep the frequency up and down. The frequency one is sort of more satisfying than the resonance one to sweep up and down. So that's kind of cool. Oh, and by the way, you can do this with any knob that's on the screen. If I wanted to, I could do it with this one here, you know, the panning for the drone, just say, and do this one. And now when I get out of MIDI mode, I can pan my drone left and right if I wanted to. I'm not going to in this case, but I could. So that's pretty cool, being able to control the frequency and do manual sweeps with the knobs there. But there's something even better here. It's called an LFO, stands for low frequency oscillator. That just means it moves backwards and forwards or up and down at a low frequency, also known as slowly. So what's going to happen here, I'm going to set my frequency, my cutoff frequency about here. I'm going to set my shape to be a sine wave, which means it moves up and down gently. And now the rate here in hertz is how many times a second. So 1 hertz means once a second, but we're probably more interested in matching to our tempo, which means this. So this means it's going to sweep up and down once per bar, and this is how much. Right now it's on 0, so you won't hear anything. But now when I bring this amount up, you can see and hear it sweeping up once per bar. Here's my click, just so you can. It's going up and down once per bar. If you want it to be slower, make the rate, say, a bigger number. There's once every 4 bars. Or if you want to go the other way, once every quarter note. And over here, once every 8th note. All the way to once every 64th note. You also have some other shapes here, which is kind of cool. You can ramp up. So let's say, again, we go just to once per bar. I'm using the ramp up, which means every bar it's going to go from low to high and then straight back down. Here it drop down there. And again, if I increase the amount, it'll go up higher. I think for what I'm doing, I personally just want the sine wave. And I want it a little bit slower. That's pretty cool. There's one more trick. There's probably a couple more tricks that you can do. Many of you will have programmed a drum loop to go with it, so when you're playing a melody, you can stay in time nice and easily. There's my drums. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use something called sidechaining to make the filter, I'll turn that off there, the filter respond to the drums. So if you push this little triangle here, you open the sidechain panel, turn sidechaining on. Input, what's going to control the filter is going to be my drums, which in this case is the 707 Rock With You kit. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to play it. Right now you're not hearing anything. Any change, but that's because this envelope control controls how much whatever's in here, in my case the drums. Oh, by the way, you want it to say post effects. That's really what you want. If I push this envelope knob up, it means the drums are going to push the ball in that direction for every beat that's loud, and if I push the envelope this way, then the ball is going to move down with the drums. Let's try it in this way first. So have a listen. We're going to hear the drum beat affect the filter on the drone. It's pretty cool. Here it goes by pushing the envelope up. So every time basically there's a kick drum and a snare drum, it makes the filter move. And what the coolest thing about this, because we've selected here post effects, that means you can turn off the drums. By the way, if you selected post mixer, then when you turn off the drums, you won't hear anything. But with post effects, it means it's after any effects that are on the drum kit, which in this case is none. But it means you can turn the drums off, but the audio from the drums is still coming through here. So now, as long as the drums are playing here, you won't hear it come through here. But by putting the envelope up, I'll just turn that click off. By putting the envelope up, so now my drone is being filtered by the drum kit. So what? Not only can I have the drum kit filtering, the drum kit adjusting the filter frequency, I can also have the LFO. So if I take the frequency down a little, so it's now going up slowly up and down every 2 bars to a sine wave, as well as having the drum kit adjusted. Watch what happens if I keep it on a sine wave but go really fast, you'll still hear the drum kit, but you'll also hear really fast changes. I'll go say 1 30-second note. So the one going that's the 30-second note, which is perhaps not very musical unless I maybe turned that down. That's kind of cool. But then if I put the drums on it as well, so I probably wouldn't do this in a real context, but just to sort of show you how it's working. But if I put this nice and slow, like 1 or 2 bars, so I can have it moving gently up and down, but also responding to the drum kit. It's kind of a neat effect, isn't it? You can also set it to hertz, so that this is fast, 10 times a second, and this is slow, once every 100 seconds. Super slow. But I prefer, for our purposes, having it set to the tempo of the track. Before I go, I might just show you one more thing. With the melody one, here's the melody, and again, for this, because for the drone, I really wanted to keep the low pass filter, but for the melody, I'm just going to try a high pass filter and see what that sounds like. So here's my melody, and again, I've got the drums running even though I can't hear them, and I can sidechain to the drums by selecting the drums here, and this time I could have the drums pull the filter down by putting the envelope into a negative value. It's kind of a cool effect there. This is what it sounds like with no filter. So it adds sort of more movement to the sound. That's no filter, and here it is with a filter. This is a bandpass filter, by the way. Anyway, you can get a variety of cool effects there. So I hope that's been useful for you, and I hope you're able to make use of some of these ideas in your own production.